Hi, I'm Kimberly. Welcome back to the Success Series Talks. Talks designed to help you get what you want out of life. Remember to listen, take notes, and most importantly, act. I want you to think about your parents. What kind of parents have you had? Some of you may have or had great parents who you felt did their best. Others of you may not have been so lucky. Whether you feel that you've had great parents or parents who could have done a little better, there is one simple fact. All parents have weaknesses. Every single one of them makes mistakes. I know this because no one is perfect. The thing is, as you grow up, you see all these. You see how they respond when someone spills the milk. Some of them may have reacted a little better than others. You get to see how they react to a bad grade. Hopefully this doesn't happen too often. For some of you, that may have included yelling and grounding you from everything under the sun, including your cell phone. There'll be no internet, no games, no going to the movies with your friends, and you're definitely not going to that party on Saturday night. I bet a few of you are smiling, because that is exactly how your parents have acted. For some of you, your parents may have done a little better and sat down with you and figured out how to help you. If you had two parents or even parents who dated other people while you were growing up, then you saw how they interacted in relationships. You saw how they handled conflict, how they resolved conflict, and even how they made up after fights. My guess is many of you saw a lot of things you didn't like and thought to yourself, I will never act like that. The good news is that it is actually possible for you to not act like that. We often refer to those who break out of how things have always been as chain breakers. Chain breakers are amazing. They set themselves and others up for an amazing future. As I mentioned before, no parent is perfect, so if you are listening to this, you should be a chain breaker. Everyone should be a chain breaker in something. Pick something your parents do that is not the best in practice and choose to do it differently. A chain breaker may be someone who chooses not to follow the route of being a drunk, doing drugs, joining a gang, or smoking. It may be someone who chooses to go to college and gets a scholarship so they don't have to take out student loans. It may be that you are the first person in your family that has a job that pays well enough that you will not have to depend on the government for your support, but that you will be able to have your needs and wants taken care of and be able to get the dreams you want in life and not be dependent on someone else who decides what they think you deserve to have. It may be the person who chooses to stop abusing their kids and spouse. It could be something less dramatic, such as choosing not to rack up credit card debt or not being obese. Everyone has within them the power to be a chain breaker. The interesting thing is, despite the fact that many people have things they do not like about their parents when they were younger, when they get older, they start to act the same way. Have you ever been talking to someone and heard them say, "Oh my goodness, I sound just like my mom," or "That is exactly what my dad would have done"? Now, not everything your parents have done is bad. So sometimes people say this and it is actually a good thing. It may be that someone finally learned that lesson their parents had tried to teach them, and then that day, it finally clicked. However, if you hear yourself saying that and it is not a positive thing, then you should change it. The fact that people don't make this choice is why some things go on for generation after generation. Your parents hated some of the things their parents did, and yet when they had you, they still chose to do those same things. And guess what? Just like you, they swore they would never act like that. So why do we keep doing the same things we hate? Why don't we choose a higher way or a better life? There are a couple of reasons for this, actually. One of them is because our brain has literally been programmed to act like this. You will notice that most adults and kids have the same views on money, religion, parenting, and politics as their parents do. We grow up constantly hearing our parents talk about certain things, and because that is all we know, we also take those same views. This is because they are our main influence for the first 12 years or so. And so we grow up only hearing certain things, and we don't know there even is another view or perspective out there that we could have. Most kids don't question everything their parents say and then go spend hours researching the issue to form their own opinions on the issue. Although, with the internet, you literally could. Hey Google, or hey Siri, what do most people think about such and such, right? It is actually okay that you don't do this, because there are a lot of views your parents have that are good. They've been around for a while and have heard from other people, and their views have been changing and developing. What you do need to do is learn to sift through things that are good, positive, and healthy, and pass those forward, and figure out things that aren't, and stop doing them. Find a better way to do them or change your thinking on something. I want to give you a couple of examples of how your brain works and why it is so hard to break those chains. Let's say that you have a father who struggled to be able to earn enough money, and so he constantly says that it is hard to get a break in this world or so hard to find a good paying job and earn enough money. Pretty soon, your brain starts to believe that. Not only will it believe it, but it will actually start going to work to find more examples of that being true, thus solidifying it in your mind. Most of this will probably take place before you are even a teenager. You will notice other friends as parents also complain about money and how hard it is to make it. Pretty soon, you believe money is this awful thing that is elusive. Funny thing is, if you asked a millionaire if it were hard to make money, what do you think they would tell you? Probably no. So which is it? Is it hard or easy? This only depends on your perspective. Again, if your mom always calls your dad names when they fight, then you'll grow up thinking this is a perfectly normal way to handle a disagreement. Did you know there are couples out there who never raise their voice or demean their partner when they fight? You may have heard from your parents, possibly at the time they divorced, that marriage is hard. Again, this gets solidified in your brain as you watch many of your friends' parents divorce and as you watch shows and movies where the couples fight and get a divorce. Pretty soon your brain is wired to be broke and divorce. This doesn't sound like a very happy future, does it? Remember how I said earlier that some people are chain breakers? There isn't a special kind of person who can be a chain breaker. It isn't a highly specialized skill that only a few people can attain on a high level like professional athletes or movie actors. This is something every person living on the planet can choose to do. You may be wondering how. Some of you may be desperately wondering how. You know you do not want your future life to be exactly like your past life. However, if you are not careful, it will. I'm going to use a very important word here because it is the key to your success or failure in this endeavor. Are you listening? The word is intentional. Getting a better life won't happen on accident. You have got to intentionally make it happen. You have to take initiative. You need to be intentional in finding role models who do have what you want in a particular area. Chances are you will have to find several because no one is going to be perfect in every area, though some may come pretty close. Start looking at your teachers, the principal, the lunch workers, the janitor, the people at work, people at the gym, people at church, and start observing them. Talk to them. Talk to their kids if you have the chance. Over time, you will get to know others who work with them, their spouse, their kids, their friends, and you'll start to find out what kind of person they are. Maybe you want to understand how to make more money when you're older. Find someone who doesn't seem to struggle. Be intentional about talking to them at lunch, on the way to the car, in the grocery line, after church, wherever you happen to see them. Maybe you've been intimidated by them in the past. Don't be. They are normal people. Start making small talk with them and start getting to know them. In time, you will feel comfortable asking them questions about their life. Ask them how they did something. Ask them why they did it. Most of them would be fine being interviewed, so do it. You have only been seeing bad examples up to this time, and your brain will help you continue to see those if you are not careful. So you have got to start giving it something better to see and try to emulate. If you don't like the home life you have, start observing which, if any, of your friends' parents have a good marriage. Be intentional about going over there and watching how they interact. You want your brain to start feeling comfortable with this and to think that their behavior is normal. We tend to feel comfortable with those things that we are around the most, even if they are bad. For example, if you want to be rich, but every time you get around people who are, you suddenly feel uncomfortable, your brain will be intentional about trying to help you avoid those situations, and that will include opportunities for you yourself to get rich. You will literally choose to be poor simply because you are comfortable with it, even if you hate it. The reason being, we usually hate being uncomfortable more than we hate other situations. We all want to stay in our comfort zones. For some of you, especially if you have anxiety or social fears, I am going to talk about another way you can change intentionally the way your brain thinks so you can learn new behavior patterns. Most people enjoy at least one of the following things. For some of you, I know you enjoy all three. Okay, so they are watching TV and movies, reading, and being on social media. Do you know that our brains don't know the difference between a real situation that is happening to us or one that we are just observing? This means you can deliberately change your thinking and your future by by being intentional about your media choices. I'm going to talk about each of the three above and how you can use this as more than just a source of entertainment, relaxation, or a way to blow off steam. TV and movies. I know that many of you think you would die if you didn't watch certain shows or you missed an episode. Maybe you watch these because they're funny or because you love mystery and being scared out of your wits. Maybe there's some other reason. I used to watch TV and movies for some of the reasons you do. One day, I realized I did not have the life I wanted. This is well after I had become an adult and I had control of my own life. I had no one to blame. No one was telling me what I could or couldn't do, and somehow, I still didn't have the type of life I thought I would have when I was a teenager. This was really troubling for me. Meanwhile, in my free time, I kept watching movies and TV shows and laughing about them, maybe sometimes even crying about them. I'd get angry when someone was mistreated and excited when someone was getting what they wanted. All the while, I just couldn't figure out why I still wasn't happy. I still occasionally watch movies or TV just for the entertainment, usually mostly when I'm with someone and they invite me. However, that isn't the main reason why I watch them now, just to be entertained. After I'd been an adult for a number of years, I started to notice that I really liked inspiring and uplifting movies, for a much different reason than why I had liked most of my movies in the past. I went through a phase where I was watching a lot of sports movies because they're usually highly inspiring, right? I also started getting rid of a lot of movies. If they had stuff that I felt was bad for my brain, I tossed them out. Eventually, this got to the point where I got rid of movies because they had the wrong attitudes about money. The couples fought all the time. The kids and parents fought all the time. Smoking and drinking were shown as the good life, and a slew of other issues that I didn't want to become part of my normal thinking. I wanted new results, and I knew I had to change some things. What I was experiencing through the TV, my brain was recognizing as something I saw as important, and I wanted my brain to only see the very highest as something I wanted. So I got rid of all the movies that didn't have the results I wanted. Even if the movie ended happy, if it portrayed it okay being poor, or okay to just settle and not achieve the dreams you have, or okay to not have everything you want, then I stopped watching it. I wanted my brain to know I wanted it all, and that it was possible because other people had it all, and if they could, then I could too. My movie collection changed drastically. I was watching things and dreaming about my future life, the one just like the person who inspired me in those movies. Most of the movies I watched were based on true stories, or at least very easily could have been true. Now, some of you will think I'm crazy for this, but I actually started taking notes while watching these movies. Sometimes it was a good quote I heard. Other times it was the thoughts I had from the quote I heard. And still other times I would see something that I really wanted and I would jot it down so my brain would know that was extra important. You see, I didn't grow up seeing everything as being perfect. I saw a lot of divorce and a lot of poverty. I knew I didn't want these, but sure enough, when I graduated, I started down a path that was taking me there. I couldn't figure out how I just kept ending up on that path. I would make changes and still see that it wasn't right. It's because when my brain gave me ideas, even if they were different, it was still with the purpose to get me the results that were the same, because that is what my brain thought I wanted. I had to become very intentional in order to be a chain breaker. Now let's talk about books. Books are important. We can learn new things from books. We can be inspired and we can have our imaginations increased. All of these are good reasons to read. However, most people read only for one reason: to be entertained. There's nothing wrong with this. However, just like with the movies, if it is the only thing you are getting out of your books, then you are not going to see a change in your life. Some of this is the way we are trained in school. They want us to read and they encourage us to read, but most of the books in a school library are for entertainment purposes only. They tell us to read novels and do book reports on them, so we do. And we get a lot of novels that, while interesting, really won't help us to become functioning adults or get the kind of life we want, to have success. This also used to be me. I love mystery books and adventure books, and I would read a book a week, sometimes more. I spent much of my teen and young adult years only reading those types of books, and I'd pat myself on the back for being such an avid reader, never realizing that this goal that I had been taught to have was actually keeping me from getting my dreams. Well, after I hit my 30s and still wasn't happy with where I was, besides changing the things I watched, I started to change the things I read. I learned that leaders were readers, but the leaders didn't just read anything. Leaders read personal development books. So I started reading books on communication, conflict, leadership, relationships, marriages, parenting, despite the fact I didn't have any kids, perseverance, relaxation, health, entrepreneurship, and many other topics. I started to be intentional about what was occupying so much of my time. I made sure I was reading about things that, if applied, would start to change the results I was getting. And guess what? I did start to get better results in different areas of my life. Now, I'm not saying you can't read a novel, but if that is all you read and you are not where you want to be in life, it may be time to consider other options. Also, again, consider reading with the intention of taking notes or underlining things. Talk to other people about what you learned. I was lucky. My mom, husband, and brother enjoyed hearing what I learned about, and so I would talk to each of them. And guess what this did for me? Not only did it help me to remember things better, but I also told my brain that this must be important because it was what I was constantly talking about. The third thing I want to talk to you about is social media and internet usage. Now, don't worry. I'm not going to tell you to delete your accounts, throw away your devices, and live in a cave. However, there are some things you can do to be deliberate about this too. Again, the internet and social media can be used as a way to get to know other people who have the results you want without actually interacting with them. So I know you probably have a lot of friends on there. Some of you may know them well, and others you may question if you know them at all. The interesting about having a lot of friends and following others is that if you aren't careful, you'll get a lot of junk added to your life. Ever notice how some people are so negative and only point out the bad things? How about the people who get on and only complain about their spouse, kids, parents, employer, etc.? Do you really want to grow up to have their life? Some of you may be thinking, but I can't get rid of them. They go to school with me, or work in the cubicle next to me, or sing in the church choir, or for goodness sake, they are my family. Let's tackle having friends, such as on Facebook. Most people have so many friends. The chances are they will never notice if you just deleted them. It doesn't send them a message saying it, and chances are in the future they will find your name again? Maybe. And if they do, they will just wonder if they hadn't already added you and just send you a request again. We overthink things as humans. If there is a really good reason why you can't delete them, for example, they are your mom and they will notice, then you can change the settings so that you aren't constantly seeing their posts in your feed. Now, how about groups or people that you follow on Facebook or Twitter? Again, you have a choice in this. If a group isn't likely to lead you where you want to go, then instead follow or like a different group. I only follow and like those who once again uplift and inspire me to become better. Same thing with Twitter. Who you follow will determine what kind of information you are getting each day. Are you being bombarded with only negative things? Unfollow or unlike that group. You can't leave these things to chance. Just accepting anyone and anything that comes your way. Intentionally associate with people and groups who will make you feel better and make your life better. Hopefully, even if you don't feel comfortable actually learning directly from people who have the quality of life you want, you will still be able to do it indirectly through some of these things I've suggested. You may wonder why more people don't do things like this, so they can have a better life. Well, let's be honest. Some people don't even know there are people out there who really do have it all. They can't know, because all they have seen is lives similar to their own. If you are listening to this, then you now have an advantage over a large amount of people. Another reason is because it does take being purposeful. Again, this won't accidentally happen. It does take some effort. It does take work. Our brains like routine. It is way easier to sit down and just pop in a movie and watch it than to examine whether or not the people in it are living lives in congruence to what we would want. It also takes a lot more effort to go through friends lists and decide if most of their posts and tweets are positive or negative. However, just because most people don't have great lives doesn't mean everyone couldn't have a great life. The same is true of you. Statistics are just a thing of the past. They really have nothing to do with the future. Just because 60% of marriages result in divorce doesn't mean you can't make better decisions than all those people and have a great marriage. It does mean you will have to be intentional, both you and your spouse, about what you want and what you need to do to achieve it. Just because you go to high school where a low percentage go to college doesn't mean you can't work hard and get scholarships and pay your way through and go. Even if your life has followed these patterns of negative things up until this time, it is not too late to change. It doesn't matter if you are 15 or 50. You can choose to start having a different life. Those things you hated about what your parents did are things you can choose to never do again. You can choose to either find someone who has the results you want and talk to them, or you can do those things I talked about with your social media, with your TV, and with your books. Be intentional and be happy. Thanks for listening, and make it a great day.